This is EdTech, the monthly look at the education space for AV. My name is Tim Albright. I am your host. With us from the great state of California, UCLA, Mr. Greg Brown. How are you, sir?
Hello, Tim. Hello, world. Alive and well, despite the fact it's actually cold and rainy outside.
What is it, like 70?
Actually, it's in the 60s. I don't know how we're going to survive.
It's a winter storm in beautiful Southern California. So,
Right.
also with us is Mr. Bill O'Donnell. How are you, sir?
I'm good. It's nice and cold and rainy out here on the East Coast, except that it's 40 and looks like Portland, Oregon. So, yeah, it's delightful.
All right. Well, Mike Tomei is just north of you in New York. So how are you, sir?
Yeah, doing really well. This is, like Bill mentioned, this is a heat wave for us. 60 degrees a couple days before Christmas, so I'll take it.
I think the local weather guy here in St. Louis said it's supposed to be 70 Christmas in St. Louis. So,
yeah. Yep.
Unquote. It didn't take long for the fruits of Extron's acquisition of video capture specialist Entwine AG to emerge in the form of a new lecture capture solution. Well, first off, let me just say this about that sentence right there. Extron was already working on stuff, right? It's not like suddenly they bought Entwine and just kind of rolled it in there. They were already working on stuff. Entwine definitely helped them, absolutely. That acquisition definitely helped them, but they were working on stuff. Greg, we're going to kick this off with you first. When it comes to lecture capture, and Extron's foray into this is not their first iteration of lecture capture. They've had some time, like I said.
Oh, definitely.
On some stuff. Does this help them? Does this solution here help them get into more classrooms? Does it hurt them? What do you think about this latest version of it?
Resistance is futile. You shall be assimilated. I think it's to be expected, but I think it's a good move on their part. I was thinking nostalgically of the good old days when we thought of Extron as just the company that made the little boxes that were the glue of all of our systems, as opposed to the thou shalt use us for all parts of your system or else company that they are quickly becoming. But I think it's a good move for them. They did have the dirt cheap streaming box, them and Crestron and a couple of other folks that were, buy the couple $1,000 box and never pay money again, record lecture boxes.
They also had the $30,000 one too.
They did, and this puts them right there in the middle, battling against, insert the name of your favorite enterprise lecture capture system, which, this is not exactly a news flash. I don't think that they're in this, and I think it's a good move for them, and they'll probably do it reasonably well.
All right, Mr. O'Donnell, when it comes to lecture capture, where do you guys sit on your campus there?
Well, we've invested so much in Blackboard that we've primarily stuck with Blackboard. I know from talking with Greg, theirs is more of a pick whatever flavor you want. For us, I'm happy to see them look at this, and Greg's right. I've always seen Extron as the hardware folks, and now it's here. We're getting to the software. As long as they make something that can plug into Blackboard or Kalutra or Canvas or something like that, they're gonna reach the wider scale campuses. Like Rutgers, I think uses they use both Blackboard and Canvas. Like I think so. Yeah, it depends on the size of the campus. Greg, help me out for a second here. How many lecture capture or online learning systems do you guys use?
Oh gosh, how many are there?
See,
that's the case,
it's the size. It depends on the size of your college or your university. Us, we're about, I think officially they say 15,000. We're really more around the level of like 10 to 12,000. And Rutgers is just, well, it's like the main campus. I mean, how many angels can you fit on a pin? They're huge. So of course they have multiple learning systems and everything. So That's why I say if Extron can get it to where, oh yeah, you want Blackboard? Here's the plugin, or here's the way it goes into this system. You want Calutra? Here you go. You want Canvas? There you go. Like, as long as they learn to play nice with the other manufacturers, I think they'll be okay.
All right, Mr. Tomei, when it comes to designing these systems and talking to your clients, how do you make this the determination which one to go to? To Greg's point, I mean, Greg has famously said on this show multiple times, UCLA is very, very federated, right? They have several different colleges, they have several different schools. It's probably why they have several different solutions. But when you're trying to vet out the correct solution for your client, how do you do that?
Yeah, so I guess it comes down to two different areas, right? You have your kind of in-room capture equipment, and Extron's SMP 351 is their capture box that they have now. And then, previously there wasn't much past that. You had to use another content management software or service. And having kind of the combination here now, purchasing Antwine, and then I think this new software that they have, which Antwine has been working on for a long time, now just kind of rebranded with Extron, looks good. I haven't used it, but it looks really good, and they're promising a lot of integration with LMS services. So being able to have that kind of end-to-end, the hardware box in the room, and the SMP 351 has been pretty reliable for capture, and I've heard a lot of people that have been starting to use it now, and then being able to say, well, we can also handle the back-end content management and then integrate it into your LMS, and it's a whole package. I think that's going to be really big for Extron.
I had another thought here. Let me toss this in. The other thing that this does for them is that it gets these are much more enterprise decisions, and this is going to get them their name and their equipment up there in the decisions amongst people who are making much more higher order decisions than a lot of tech managers are, than a lot of people who were deciding on their equipment in the past. And the one thing I've seen from them, I think, for a while now, is really an interest in dealing with people at universities on a much higher level than they typically came from, because it was the techs who were often deciding whether or not you were using Extron stuff, because they were the glue stuff, like I mentioned. But I think this also fits in with sort of a shift in their marketing over the last few years too.
Interesting. So you think they're recognizing the fact that a lot of the shift in from years ago when I started was as a tech manager, I was in an AV department, and now a lot of folks who work in AV are in the IT departments, and therefore those decisions are made at a CIO, CTO level.
Yeah, if you can get a CIO convinced that you should use, brand A over brand B, you are either blessed or damned,
Sure.
For the rest of your life if you're on the receiving end of that, depending on which side of the fence you were on that one. So I think they see that.
All right, very good. Let's bring in a blog from a very fine network, avnetwork.com. It's entitled "Creating Advanced Learning Environments," made by a very well-known international star of mystery and mayhem, Mr. Mike Tomei.
Tim, who would that be?
I've heard of him.
I have too.
Yeah.
Oh,
He's an excellent
who's this scoundrel?
Yeah.
He does this thing online
40.
that he does this thing online. I think like 7 or 8 people watch it, something like that.
Well,
Hey,
your dad and my dad. There's 2.
Yeah, there's 4 of us here, so
yeah,
that's
4
how.
Crap.
Well, there's 6 of our 7 right there.
2 of us are married, so
Right.
I'm not going to say which 2, but anyhow, so I kid, but it's actually a very good piece. So, Mike, I'm going to start with you. Kind of explain exactly what you're talking about when you're talking about, again, you're dealing with the client, you're dealing with the university. How do you differentiate, and how do you say, okay, you know what, this one is an advanced, this one is a huddle space in a classroom, this one is a flipped classroom? Go through the process when we get to the advanced learning environment, and how you walk them through that.
Yeah, so the article I wrote, it's pretty brief, but I touched on people, active learning is huge these days, obviously. Every administrator at every school wants to have active learning rooms installed and show that, they're the learning institution of the future. And there's a lot of different flavors of active learning, if you will. You can have your full-blown active learning room that might have 6 or 7 or 8 tables in the room. Each table gets a flat panel display. There's laptop inputs at every seat or a bunch of those seats, and a big matrix switcher, so signals can be routed from any input to any display in the room. And that's kind of the full-blown active learning. And then you can boil it down to maybe including huddle spaces too, which might be in a library. They'd install one table that has 4 to 6 seats at it, throw a flat panel display on it, maybe 1 or 2 laptop inputs, and that is also considered collaborative AV technology. So there's a big difference between the two, and in the article, what I touched on is really focusing on the needs analysis stage of projects that involve active learning, because administrators are usually the people that are kind of driving these projects, and they want to have active learning spaces on campus. But if you're not involving faculty, the people that are actually going to be in the room and needing to teach in that room, if you're not involving them in the needs analysis phase of the project, then you're probably in for trouble later on. A lot of faculty, they don't really have curriculum that they've built to use in active learning environments. So I've installed or worked on active learning classrooms, and then the first person to get in there is a professor that just teaches a conventional lecture class. And now you have a room where you have students facing all different directions because they're little pod tables, and the technology does not work well for lectures, and they're using their same old curriculum in there. So I think campuses and especially AV designers really need to get instructional technology training staff involved early on so that they can work with faculty and kind of revise their curriculum to really work in these active learning spaces. And there are usually a couple gung-ho faculty members on a campus that really want these active learning spaces, but I found that the majority don't. They aren't comfortable teaching in them. They don't really know how they're going to teach in them. So maybe installing one on a campus as a test subject is a good idea. Ripping out every conventional classroom in a building and putting in active learning spaces is a really bad idea and really expensive, because they can be 6 or 7 or 8 or 10 times the price of a standard classroom setup once you get all this matrix switching and displays all over the place and laptop inputs. So.
All right, let's bring in the Bill here and then Greg.
Okay, so
go ahead.
So funny enough, how we're all mentioning how we talk about this, because we're actually putting in 2 in our new building as we speak. Like literally, the integrator and my associate Damon are working out the bugs as we speak. And it is true, you have to bring on the instructional design folks with the faculty, because believe me, like on this campus alone, we had a transition of going from WordPerfect to Word, and we had to give folks a 2-year lapse because they're like, oh, I don't want to do this, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, oh, a whole new room configuration? Oh, this is going to be, this will take an adoption.
Was awesome.
Yeah, listen. So is MS
You know
DOS.
what, Greg? So was a stone tablet, but
that was a little bit before my time.
much.
Papyrus not, but stone tablets, yes. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So when they actually learned how to sharpen the stick in the dirt, that was an improvement too.
He was there.
Anyway, so the Mike hit the nail on the head with this one, is that you have to get the faculty, and you're right, there are faculty that are going to be, oh yeah, no, I totally want to work in a new space and this and that, and unfortunately I'm dealing with senior faculty members who are clamoring that they want whiteboards put up and chalkboards put up in certain rooms, and I'm looking at them going, are you out of your mind? But it's teaching them, it's like, here's a new way to go about it. And Will it get adopted? Yes. Do I think that our administration is going, oh yeah, active learning classrooms, that's the way of the future? And I'm going, let's see what the usage rate is first for over like the next 2 years before we start converting things. I said you really have to see, do folks use this? Because like Mike said, if you put someone who does traditional, as they put it, sage on the stage style, where they just do the lecture, they sit up in front, they maybe use the whiteboard, they're going to walk into an active learning classroom and they're going to say, don't ever put me in this room again. This room sucks.
Yeah.
And, there's a lot of time and effort gets sunk into design into these things. So it's absolutely essential that, you get the instructional design folks involved in this, because that way they can actually build teaching curriculum around it. And it's to get folks used to it, because otherwise it's just going to go, I have no idea how this room works. I am completely shocked by this. Get me the hell out of this room.
Yeah.
So,
all right, Mr. Brown, where in the process and then how do you get the faculty to that table?
Wow. If we were building any of these spaces, I could give you an idea on how we were handling that. But we're largely a very traditional campus with a lot of very, shall we say, traditional. I'm resisting the urge to do the finger quotes. Very traditional instructors and instruction methods.
Lecture halls.
Yes. I'm afraid we're very enamored with those still at this point.
In general, though, and when you guys are designing new systems, how do you incorporate faculty input?
Well, ideally, you have to include faculty input, and I see good examples and bad examples of that in various or have seen at various times and places. And also the other thing most colleges are doing, most larger colleges, is that you've got people whose job is nothing but to help some of these instructors learn these new technologies and how to work with these technologies, and sit down with them one-on-one and work with these things and show them examples of what they can do with this stuff, so the first time they're seeing it isn't in the classroom. That's as much of an effort as actually building the things in a lot of schools.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we'll take this another different direction today. Higher ed tech decisions. They had an article, let me see if I can bring it up here, about the 16 apps and tools that make teaching easier. So I'm going to bring it a little bit different around to you guys. What makes your job easier? What are some apps or some tools that make your job as a tech manager easier? Mr. O'Donnell?
Pass.
Pass? You don't have one?
Give me a minute or so. I'm just mentally checking to see what's on my phone.
Okay. Greg?
Go. I'm looking around trying to figure out something I can talk. I think I've got something I can talk about, but come back to me, because I'm going to have to go and get it.
All right.
Oh, actually, I do have one here. Hold on. Aha. There's actually there's actually an app that we use for whenever we're getting ready to renovate. Is specifically, it's a phone. It's actually an Android app, but it's called Smart Tools.
Okay.
And it's got it has a sound pressure level meter. It's got rulers. It's got a couple of other little things, so you can just do some quick calculations and everything. Is it the same as having like a real-time noise analyzer and everything? No, but for those times where we're just going to walk around and talking with, say, faculty or administration, in which they say, "Oh, we want to renovate this floor and everything." Okay, let me at least like get like the basics of the room dimensions and how much the ground noise is and everything else, and we can go and say, "All right, you're going to at least need this level of speakers or this level of brightness." Although I do carry a light meter separately. It would be nice if it was on the phone, but I don't think there's any money for Samsung to install a light meter in their phones.
They could probably do an inexpensive one like the SPL.
That's true, but like I said, it's one of those ones. It's helpful for me whenever I'm going into a room and checking things. As far as day-to-day apps, I'm sure there's one or two. It's just that my brain is kind of fleeting at the moment. So.
Oh, that's all right. That's two of us today. So.
Uh,
All right, Mr. Brown is back with his tool chest there. What do you got, sir?
I went the hardware route.
That's fine.
Because I stumbled across this again the other day, and it's actually been a pretty useful little device. This is the LAR 150 from Atlas Sound, and what this does is that you swing these handles out, and this thing here latches into a single rack space. Like that.
Okay.
If I was like sitting in the rack, you would latch this in place, and you now have a shelf you can put heavy equipment on, slide it in place. It holds it level and in the right place. See this, that you're operating little latches here, and it's got pins that go into the rack holes.
Oh, nice.
And it's an instant one. It takes up one rack unit, but man, you slide this in where you're putting in a couple of amplifiers or something like this, and you just slide them in, sit them down, and they're sitting perfectly exactly where you need them.
Holy cow!
And
Nice.
it was a cheap little device. I want to say it was like $100 or something like that. I mean, it's all bent and welded up metal, so they're obviously putting a little bit of effort into putting this together. But just one of the neater devices I have found at the show in the last couple of years that we don't use it every day, but it's hard to beat something like that when you need to put in a 100-pound amplifier or something like that.
Yeah. Very cool.
That was just the first thing that came to mind.
Absolutely. All right.
Actually, there is one other thing, hardware-wise, that actually does come in handy for us. At Lona actually makes a little HDMI tester, and it's good for up to 2K. I wish they made a 4K model, but I think it's only a couple $100. So for a couple $100, you can't exactly ask for a whole lot. But it's nice because it's one of those ones where I believe it's got an HDMI, and I think it has a DisplayPort plug on it, and it's just nice in case the folks go, "Oh, I'm not getting anything." Bunk. There you go. And it's small enough to where it's about the size of a smartphone, really.
Okay.
So it's a nice little quick back pocket item.
Yeah, we've got one of those around here too. I think we have an earlier generation, but yeah, there aren't enough quick and dirty, reliable little digital testers on the market yet.
Yeah, that's.
All right, Mr. Tomei, do you have any tools that either when you were a tech manager or now?
Yeah, nowadays, in the consulting world, it's famous for the amount of meetings we have to attend with architects and construction meetings and out in the field. So for me, just having everything cloud-based is huge because I can bring my laptop with me and refer to every drawing that they're going to bring up in a meeting. But I have a lot of little apps that I use for like site surveys. When I'm out in the field, Bill was mentioning an SPL meter. I'm just looking at my phone right now. RTA that I use. They're good enough to get by for a quick and dirty site survey out in the field. I have a little projection calculator, lens calculator on my phone, so I can figure out throw distance and screen size real quick when people start talking about it during meetings. And let's see. And I have a real basic light meter actually on here that uses the camera on the phone. It's, I'm sure, not extremely accurate, but it's decent enough to get a little reading of light, ambient light bouncing off a screen or that sort of thing, and just gives me a little information that so I don't have to bring light meter with me and SPL meter. So those are the apps I really use.
All right, there you go, Bill. An app, a light app.
Fair enough. I've now been, as I say, I'll say this. Every now and then I'm known to be wrong, and by that I mean like 70% of the 70% of the time, or 95 if you talk to my girlfriend. So
Well, it depends.
I'd be curious how accurate it is, though. I haven't really. I rarely use it actually, compared to the audio apps I use pretty often. If I have to test ambient noise levels in a room and HVAC, that sort of thing. This is just a quick and dirty way to do it. So.
Well, and I've got one for you guys too. It's called AV Buddy. I don't know the guy that made it, but it's incredibly useful. It has a lot of the different things that you guys are talking about. calculations and measurements and stuff like that that you guys can download. I don't know if it costs or not. I've had it for too many years that honestly at this point I don't remember if it costs anything or not. So, all right, guys, that is going to do it for this month. With us has been Mr. Mike Tomei from Tomei Consulting. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
And how can people find you?
Well, my website is tomeiav.com. That's TOMEIAV.com. Or you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm on there pretty often.
All right, very good. Also with us, Mr. Greg Brown. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And how can people find you?
Same way, LinkedIn's usually the easiest way to find me.
Yeah,
Lots
Greg,
of people have found me there.
Like over 10,000 at this point.
It's only 890.
Wow.
Not that I'm counting. And not that I don't have a friend who thinks she's in some sort of competition with me.
Never mind. I'm not going to ask. Also with us is Mr. Bill O'Donnell. Bill is Bill's on the phone at this point, so we're gonna skip Bill. You can find Bill at the original OD.
He's checking with his girlfriend to make sure he said all the right things.
Yes. So, anyhow, my name is Tim Albright. Don't follow me, but go by the website if you would, please. avnation.tv. avnation.tv. You will find this program and a host of others. You can listen to this podcast. We're doing a new State of Control, a brand new Lightcast, and social media. So, avnation.tv, avnation.tv. Thanks so much for listening. Thanks so much for watching. This has been EdTech.